Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Out in the holler where the secrets creep, garbage can dudes digging mighty deep. Secret societies, shadows in the pines. Operation GCD of American rebels design. Double J searching deep in his brain hole, past layers of melted hops and bone resin. From cults to cover-ups, we're talking about all of that. So watch your sixth friend and the truth we trust. The world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Join us on the journey and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us to get a little GCD. And the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo coats haunt the moon's pale beam. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Hell, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Out in the holler where the secrets creep, garbage can dudes digging mighty deep. Secret societies, shadows in the pines. Operation GCD of American rebels design. Double J searching deep in his brain hole, past layers of melted hops and bone resin. From cults to cover-ups, we're talking about all of that. So watch your sixth friend and the truth we trust. The world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Join us on the journey and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us to get a little GCD. And the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo coats haunt the moon's pale beam. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Hell, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze.
Happy November. Whatever you do this month, don't feed the trolls or the feds. Don't let them feed you. Don't take the bait. Don't play with fire, but burn whatever bridges you need to burn.
Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, back here, coming at you live from my studio/RV dining room, located directly inside America. And apparently it's a little early for November, huh? Sound advice nonetheless. Anyhow, folks of the interwebs, I will your host of Operation GCD, JJ Vance here, and perhaps more notably, not the vice president. Anyhow, folks of the interwebs, we'll be your pilot and there you go, sir. American Rebels Design. We'll be your pilot and navigator for tonight's shenanigan-infused journey into the mind of this particular garbage can dude. And I'm not going to lie to you, folks of the interwebs. Got a real barn burner here on deck for y'all tonight. Got a Operation GCD Thursdaze, the anatomy of the Satanic Panic, on Friday. So I do appreciate you all bearing with me here this evening, joining me here tonight. Thanks again, folks of the interwebs, joining me here tonight to get a little GCD on this delayed adventures of Muppet Mikey Aquino and his pal Laser Tag Ted Gunderson. And for those of you folks not familiar with Laser Tag Ted, let me introduce you.
There's thousands of Americans out there. By the way, I've been shot with a laser beam twice.
They got Ted twice, folks. Watch out. So we're going to be getting into picking up where we left off. Yes, ma'am. Cincinnati schemers, they're everywhere. So not so much tonight necessarily. I wish I could tell you Michael Aquino had any relations to the group, but none that I found. Nor his buddy General Paul Valle, his co-author of Psyops to Mind More. We sit here today, folks. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. We sit here today in year 45. Ish, according to the propagandists, that is, as we've seen phase one picked up in 1980, although really Satanic Panic started in 75. We already covered that as well. Kane B, yes, sir. Good to see you there, bud. Kane B's The Purge, who joined Kane B every Monday to co-host his weekly Idaho 4 wrap-up show, where primarily we discuss fast food news, type 2 diabetes talk, and the occasional Idaho 4 conversation. But nonetheless, General Paul Valle, he's an interesting character. And he carries on these same matters of their current phases. But back to, these psyops to mind more. It started really in 75, but those propagandists don't want to recognize that. So we're going to be picking up in phase 4. That is the we'll call it circa 2008 to modern day. And we see the same narratives being played by the same characters. General Paul Valle being notably one of them, as they every one of these Nazi Satanist propagandists that we've unpacked their propaganda, looked at some of their statements, their podcasts, their documentaries. They all repeat the same script that Muppet Mikey Aquino, everyone's favorite Joey bastard who claims to be a special forces officer, psychological warfare Satanist, Phoenix program, Colby's Queers. Phoenix program come home. Dave McGowan was right. You know what I mean? We keep looking at more and more of these factors. But that 1980 phase begins with, of course, Michelle Remembers, as we've unpacked. And all of these folks today cite QAnon and Pizzagate as being the new Michelle Remembers. A lot to be said there. Obviously, there's a lot, as always, in these matters. A lot of shit coating goes on with these matters of Pizzagate, etc. We'll unpack some more of those things here tonight because General Valle, the co-author, Psyops to Mind More, and advisory council, or former advisory council to Charlie Kirk, that is, but advisory council to Turning Point USA, Paul Valle. So these are interesting characters that revolve around time and space here, folks, and continue to shitcoat these matters. And of course, they all tell you, well, there's no evidence, right? And there's no evidence, but before we get into those matters, I got a few. We get caught up here in a couple of the chats again. Appreciate y'all joining me. We're doing a free Patreon preview here. Come join us on the other side of patreon.com/Operation GCD. And yes, ma'am, keeping it sus 24/7. So we'll be unpacking these things again. This again, they don't want to talk about phase 1, 75 to 80, really. So phase 1, according to these propagandists, Michelle remembers, published November of 1980. 92 to 92, which is the landing report, that FBI report that says, oh yeah, we looked at it. There's no, these are not the Satanists you're looking for. And then again, that goes on until that 92 to circa 2008. That's phase 3. And then phase 4, 2008 forward, we see the same script recited by Muppet Mikey Aquino in emails, documentaries, interviews, etc. Emails to Dave McGowan, the guy who has searched the Phoenix program come home. We've heard Aquino cite his Phoenix program details and the known knowns there and apply them to the known unknowns. That is his activities when he came back from Viet fucking Nam. And seems like he was doing the same shit, weaponizing folklore and culture in which to tyrannically control society. Seems to be his kind of thing. Anyhow, what do we got here? Tune in tomorrow, the Idaho 4 50th anniversary purge. I don't know what the anniversary is 50th, but 50th anniversary purge extravaganza, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Star-studded event featuring Miss Potts, JJ Vance, and more. You might actually be featuring Triple J, because I don't know if I'm joining you for that one, sir, but I do appreciate that. Folks, tune in to Kane B's The Purge, where Triple J, my son, may in fact take over that. I'm not sure, Kane. We'll let you know. But no, anyhow, no. The awesome conversations of The Purge. I've never shared the stage with Miss Potts. That'll be exciting. I've long tried to have many conversations with her. She's a tough lady to get a hold of sometimes, but I do appreciate she uses her brain hole for God's intended purposes, and that's, you know, what most folks, not what most folks do. They use it for an oversized paperweight. So before we go any further, let me get into some administrative details here tonight, folks. Before we go any further, I got a Operation GCD Fridays coming up tonight, talking some similar activities, these Nazi Satanist transpocalypse activities, kind of the evolution of this modern phase of these matters, the terrorizing society through these weaponized folklore and Christianity, Satanism. So that'll be Dr. Inferno. Please note he's not a doctor by any licensing standards. However, he is a man well versed in these matters, and in fact infiltrated some of their groups online, because that is how these things recruit. These things how permeate today is through these online groups like Discord. So there are elements of that are truth, much like the elements of all of this stuff here in year 45 of our panic. There's a lot of facts, there's a lot of fiction, a lot of lasers. So, and speaking of lasers, we have a lot of characters like, you know, old laser tag Ted Gunderson.
And I said to myself, what's this all about? I don't know anything about Satanism. I read about it in the Bible, of course, and that's about it.
Ted doesn't know anything about Satanism, folks. In fact, that's what he repeated ad nauseum for about 30 years. From moment one in 1980 when he came on the scene, as we unpacked. And we'll revisit more in the future, but my point there is I believe those lasers, I may have gotten to the bottom of these laser situation, though, folks. Those might have been those Men in Black lasers. You know, they put them in front of your eyeballs and, you know, blow out your brain hole as far as information goes. You blank out your brain hole. My apologies. I think they did that to Ted because he kept saying he didn't know anything about Satanism. I think he got hit with a couple more than just two of them lasers. So it is the characters that revolve around these matters and the sources that permeate this information that oftentimes concern me. But before we get into any further those details, got a couple of administrative issues to deal with here. First and foremost, there's been reports of some bad Kool-Aid circulating. I'm not sure if this picture depicts what occurred to these folks, but my understanding, you know, watch out for that Kool-Aid. Let's be honest with you, folks. This demonic egregore Kool-Aid man, you know, he's a liability. He's out there bursting in folks' walls, assaulting folks, causing lots of damage and carnage. Carnage and damage like these damn Nazi Satanists. But we're gonna get further into that tonight. And again, we're gonna get more into that. Dr. Inferno is going to join me here on the Patreon side for a bit. We're also going to be discussing more of those kind of matters tonight on Operation GCD Fridays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Times with Dr. Inferno. And then, of course, tomorrow night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Times, 6 Degrees of a Serial Killer of Dogs. This is where I like to make a wish for actor Kevin Bacon in his search for a new patsy in his 6 Degrees game. Well, you asked for it, Kevin Bacon. Stephen Baldwin here, Process Church's top pit bull trainer. Father was Process Church animal trainer to the stars. So it seems to be multi-generational. He went to West Point, where he dated Maura Murray, and he's now the number one suspect in the disappearance of her, where she disappeared in 2004. Pretty infamous case, but that gets pretty processing pretty quick from a lot of those different degrees. So 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Times, folks of the interwebs. And then, of course, that's actually Operation GCD Sundays on Saturday. Operation GCD Sundays on Sunday. Conspiracy Theory in the Society of the Cincinnati, 1783 to 1790 specifically. This is my comparative analysis and review of a PhD thesis written by somebody at the University of Munich in Germany. So unpacking, it's strange. I was strange that I stumbled across that. And they make some interesting points. They bring up some interesting matters. I disagree with them on some. But there's not many folks that cover the Society of Cincinnati. In fact, one of those individuals who have written about the Society of the Cincinnati is a very topical individual to tonight, because that is Fritz Springmeier and his Bloodlines of the Illuminati. So folks probably remember me covering this before, but this guy, friend of Laser Tag Ted, and of course Tracy Twyman, who will be a topic of discussion relative to the propaganda sides of the ongoing phase 4 of the Satanic Panic. And Fritz Springmeier here, a lot to be said about him, connected to that Aryan Nations compound, domestic terrorist, bombed some shit, robbed some banks, but got out of prison and still did his little tours. He's the son of a CIA guy, and more interestingly, he, or more strangely enough, I guess, he also went to West Point. Yeah. He got a recommendation there by Bob Dole, that crazy bastard. So these are all fascinating. I wonder if he's one of Colby's queers, Special Forces guys. That'd be interesting. Covered so Stephen Baldwin went to West Point. It's interesting how these things go. I'm not saying there's any connection there, but it's a pattern that seems to represent itself amongst a lot of these Nazi Satanists. Because I would assert Springmeier, despite his claims of, otherwise, he's most certainly a Nazi. And I suspect, much like his pal John Todd, was also a Satanist. John Todd, the first guy in pre-phase, back in 78, started telling folks, Satan's in your music, Satan's in Dungeons and Dragons. He claimed to be a former Satanist priest, and, was diddling kids apparently for decades, and went to prison for it eventually. So Fritz Springmeier says, nice guy, that John Todd. John Todd's friend, though, of course, also Randy Weaver, Ruby Ridge, back to the Aryan Nations compound. I'm just saying there's a repeating pattern of behavior around these things. Seems to replicate over and over again. We covered that actually last Sundays here on Operation GCD Live in the Israel Keys invades Vermont. Another U.S. Army Special Forces, weird, maybe the new evolution of Colby's queers, Nazi satanic serial killer, who once again connected to that same Aryan Nations compound in Idaho, former Aryan Nations compound. So these things are fascinating when you start drawing these circles around these matters and trying to understand more of the known knowns. And that's what I want to try to do here, folks. I don't try to insert my opinions or thoughts into these Nazi Satanists. Try to extrapolate on their own actions and words and see what comports. When, for example, when Michael Aquino says, "Oh, I don't do Nazi thelemic magic on military duty," and then like a couple minutes later, he's like, "Yeah, I do Nazi thelemic magic on military duty." That's in his own autobiography, so it's a little schizo, I agree, but nonetheless, that is the what I try to parse out here in the series. But phase 4, a lot of QAnon stuff, a lot of Pizzagate. Of course, we're told they don't have a basement in Comet Pizza. They're not raping kids in the basement. There's no basement. Again, it's shitcoating the whole matter. A lot of that stuff revolved around the pedophilia symbols from an FBI report. Those symbols were utilized not only in Comet Pizza, their menu, etc. It also associated businesses were using the same symbols, including a place called Voodoo Donuts. which this is coast to coast. That's over there in Portland. Oh, Portland, you know, where Fritz Springmeier and gang, all them Nazis seem to, and Neo-Processians seem to congregate. That's weird. So, before we go any further, though, if folks are not familiar with the Nazi Satanist telemarketing script as recited by Aquino as early as the 80s in his Slaps to Mind War, on through our modern era, and now today being utilized in the same fashion with the same talking points in the same telemarketing script by the QAnon Pizza Gators. So, and again, that's led on the other side by characters like Tracy Twyman, who's walking in the steps of Laser Tag Ted and her pal Fritz Springmeier, you know, the domestic terrorist, and son of the CIA guy, went to West Point, you know, that guy. You know, friend of John Todd, the kid diddler. Nice guy, he said, John Todd. That's what he said. I mean, that's again his words. But, you know, these things seem to, again, have a repeating pattern of behavior, and Portland seems to be a real den of iniquity. But that telemarketing script is, again, recited ad nauseum. There's no evidence. In fact, I have a clip here tonight here, folks, I'll play in a moment, that says there's never been any evidence of any satanic ritual abuse at any daycare ever. That's a bold statement. It's a bold, I mean, again, but it's a great example of the psyops to mind war. That is what Aquino and General Paul Vallée, the QAnon general, they said that in their paper. That is their intended purpose. We'll also see where these propagandists cite the purpose of that same paper, written in 1981, I believe it was, leaked out later. But we see here in 2020 through 2024 in modern day Nazi Satanist propaganda that we see them also bringing that psyops to mind more to life, using every medium of technology, repeating the same bullshit over and over again across each medium of technology and communications, until which point in time folks have just keep reciting there's no evidence, almost like it's like automatic. You know, that is the psyops to mind war. We're in year 45 of it, technically 50, but this is the matters at hand here with Muppet Mikey Aquino, and we see again the same patterns. Psyops to Mind War co-author and boss, General Vallée, pushing the QAnon. We got the Tracy Twyman. She started her own QAnon. We went over that a little bit in the past. We'll look at more of that tonight. Nonetheless, we see other people that are repeating patterns through here against these, specifically amongst this Nazi crowd, like Tracy Twyman's mentor, Boyd Rice, who was also the mentor to Marilyn Manson, Trent Reznor, so on and so forth. And he's also the bandmate to the Zizians attorney, you know, that disregard that Silicon Valley based AI focused rationalist vegan transpocalypse homicidal death cult, whose cases are still being adjudicated in some instances, including the leader, the Ziz Lord, Jack LaSoda. And as we went over before, there's numerous, they've got an encampment in Vermont still. And when we did that here in Operation GCD Sundays, the Zizians invade Vermont. And in addition to that, there's some known unknowns. We know that we don't know where some of those fuckers are. So those are some of the known unknowns. Again, I like to try to parse these. When dealing with psychopaths, folks, try to put my brain hole in the spot of a psychopath, try to understand where their brain hole's at. You know what I mean? Like this.
As we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't.
Yes, so there's some known unknowns. One of them is these folks are always trying to expand this Voodoo Donut franchise. I believe they actually have a location in Thailand as well. That's not creepy. And they're also, I believe, they're the official donut distributor of Universal Studios, both in Los Angeles and Orlando. So these matters persist, and that's my point. If we keep being told as a society that there is no evidence, and there are, you know, the Muppet Mikey Aquino Jedi mind trick, you know, because thought he was a Jedi, wrote a bunch of Star Wars fan fiction. These are not the Satanists you're looking for. So obviously that has worked to some effect. However, again, it's not, what I always emphasize also is that mindfuck is not exclusive to simply the Satanic Panic. As, you know, the ability to psyops to mind work, folks, is going to, you know, it's going to discombobulate folks' ability to discern fact from fiction, generally speaking. I think it has an outlying effect of that nature. But nonetheless, again, we see repeating patterns. QAnon and Pizzagate are Michelle Remembers. Now, we know Michelle Remembers was established that's a completely controlled opposition because, pardon me, from 75 to 80, that pre-phase one of the Satanic Panic, the John Todd, Mike Warnke years, pushing through the evangelical movement, claimed to be former Satanist priests, well, diddling kids, those guys, Fritz Springmeier's friends. We see that didn't work out too well. So like, oh, we gotta have this new behavioral analysis unit. It's going to tell us what serial killers are and their mode of operations for serial killers, as demonstrated throughout this series so far, folks, and in Dave McGowan's Program to Kill, is bullshit. Oftentimes they work together. Oftentimes they're part of a cult. Oftentimes there's a lot more of those details, etc. We'll be unpacking that again when we get back into those phases with the behavioral analysis unit, which was created in the wake of Ted Bundy and Son of Sam, etc. So, and then we get Michelle Remembers. That's used to shut down all these daycares scandals, right? And again, it's not just daycare scandals. There's ongoing enterprises across the spectrum. I've been tracking numerous cases in and around Southwest Ohio, specifically Cincinnati, those damn Cincinnati schemers, perhaps. There was a multi-state kidnapping, kid diddling, child pornography ring being run out of Hamilton County and Claremont County back in 2019, and that shit got right under the rug real fast. In fact, the reports cite an altar, etc. They kidnapped a young girl from Indiana. There's a lot more to those tales. We'll look at some more of those tonight. But again, it's not just these things have evolved, is my point, folks. It's not just the daycare scandals, which those are ongoing. It's not just the ongoing ritual human sacrifices and animal sacrifices. We'll look at some of those again. These smiley face killer victims, that is, how that's evolved in this neo-Processian Nazi satanic movement of ritual human sacrifices and domestic terror. Colby's Queers Operation Gladio style. But these things do evolve, and in that evolution, we see a lot of it going on through the interwebs. And through the interwebs is these cases in Cincinnati that went poof, the way of Houdini. I mean, these folks got convicted, but there was none of their there was co-conspirators that never got brought to justice, and that was well established early on in the investigation. In fact, these two individuals were established as co-conspirators through that investigation and the child porn. So, and again, one of it was getting filmed in an altar room in Claremont County, Ohio, on the striking. It's not lost to me that the smiley face killer victims are on mound sites, and then incidents like this incident's on a mound site. So, I'm just saying, folks, repeating patterns, but we do see them saying no evidence, giving us the sides to mind more, even in our modern times, relative to these topics of QAnon and Pizzagate. And again, there's a lot of shit coating there. There's a lot of false narratives. I'm not saying trust the plan, folks, but what I am saying is, much like anything, there's facts to be discerned from any of this propaganda, even laser tag Ted.
There were terrifying tales of secret satanic cults bent on tormenting and corrupting the young.
Many people became convinced that Satan worshippers were all around them, practicing ritual abuse on hapless victims. A lot of the hysteria came from conservative religious reactions to the popularity of heavy metal music and role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. The panic led to numerous accusations of ritual abuse in daycare centers, culminating in the infamous McMartin preschool trial.
There's never been any proof that there was any kind of satanic ritual abuse or satanic cult activity in a daycare center.
When I first got involved in these cases, I'll be very honest with you, I tended to believe that this was going on. But eventually, the number of cases just kept growing.
Today, it lives on in new forms, such as the far-right QAnon movement, which targets celebrities and Democrats instead.
There's no evidence, folks. In fact, that one guy's conclusion was because there was a high volume of incidents, there's no way it could be true. Well, that in itself is fallacious. That's ridiculous, folks. Ridiculous. So we're going to look at more of those things, compare Michael Aquino's and, again, these other characters we've already laid out, their activities relative to these matters. And furthermore, we see even, again, platforming folks like again, the shit coating on this was heavy from moment one. I recall this all going down, including putting James Alefantis, the secret Rothschild, as I assert. That'll be a topic for a different day, horse of a different color, folks. But the owner of Comet Pizza, folks wondering why he's one of the most powerful men in D.C., according to that magazine there. top 50. Well, he had access to the White House. All of that shit's been largely scrubbed. Used to play a lot of ping pong games with Barack Obama in the basement of the White House. There's some photos of that still exist, but that's been scrubbed in large part because the shit code went real heavy on this real early on, but they immediately tied it to the Satanic Panic. Again, this is year 45 of the panic, folks. It's a lot of panic.
They also pounced on an email from D.C. pizzeria owner and prominent Democratic supporter James Alefantis, inviting Podesta to a pizza party fundraiser at his restaurant. Users then started combing through Alefantis' Instagram posts, including a photo of a young girl with her hands taped to the ping pong table. Alefantis says the child is his goddaughter and the picture was very innocent. And this picture, that conspiracy theorists decided must be the secret basement where children are locked up. But in fact, it's from a restaurant Alefantis considered leasing, and Comet Ping Pong doesn't even have a basement.
Holy smokes, did y'all hear that? Comet Pizza doesn't even have a basement. Well, someone should tell James Alefantis that he doesn't have a basement, because he seems to think that he stores a lot of tomatoes down there. This is from an article. We've covered this in the past. We'll go over here real quick. From 2015, James Alefantis from scratch with 2 community-centric restaurants. Right next door, he owns Buck's Hunting and Fishing. So that's the other one they're talking about here. And I believe the access to the basement, as cited in this article, is actually through the neighboring restaurant, which is an adjoining restaurant, through the wall there, adjoining wall. So we scroll down here, and he's talking about a bunch of bullshit about his restaurant, and then we go down here, and we see, oh, look right there. What was it they couldn't believe you had made? Well, Alefantis says, well, we make everything from scratch. Blah 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 blah. Because a lot of restaurants will open a can and put it on like our sauce. We have harvested a whole crop of organic tomatoes. Oh, that's nice of them. 10 tons of tomatoes every year. Canned them all. Stored them in the basement. Well, I was just told that they didn't have a basement. In fact, that was an interview he gave on Fox News where they bring him up next after that introduction, that they have no basement. So we see the shit coding across the spectrum of activities. But Pizzagate was never about that basement. It was about the activities in and around the characters like Alefantis and his buddies, the Podestas, the Podesta emails, etc. And, there's a lot to be said about that. A lot to be said about a lot of those things. A lot to be said about the symbols that caused all these things, including a Slate.com article back when the left here in America, lefty politics, kind of stood up for, not diddling kids. It's been a long time, but this is 2007. The Pedophile Secret Code, and they published this bulletin that was released by WikiLeaks. You wonder what got Julian Assange in trouble. This was a FBI bulletin regarding these symbols used in these pedophilia scams or scandals, disregarded, and incidents. These operations, if you will. That's what they really are, folks. They're operations. Let's face it. And speaking of things of shit code, and there's that fella George Webb rolling around the interwebs today. George Webb and the interwebs. Back at the Comet Pizza thing, we'll call it circa November, December 2016. He goes into Comet Pizza on his little live stream on his phone there. He's like, oh, I just came out of there. I was talking to James. He was talking to James Alefantis. You see the end of the conversation. He goes outside. He goes, oh, I was just talking to the owner, James Alefantis. He's a good CIA guy. He's just doing the drug running and the gun running. He's not doing the kid diddling. I'm like, excuse me, sir. What the fuck did you just say? But somehow that people still watch that dude today. And that's one of the few, but many problems with his situation. But we see the shit coding around these matters extensive. And we see why. It's a psyops to mind war. There are no basements in Comet Pizza. There are no Satanists murking your family members and friends. There are no Satanists sexually, ritually abusing your children. You're a fucking Looney Tune if you think so. But that is what we get. We see time and time again, there's repeating patterns, the same characters. So we'll be unpacking these things here, folks, of the interwebs tonight. Join us here on patreon.com/OperationGCD for the remainder of this program. Catch this broadcast in the future. Come on down. And let's see here. Absolutely. Made my first live chat after bringing a shed load of content through Spotify. Thank you for the laughs and information, Senior Vance from the south of England. Absolutely there. Brooke Butel. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. thank you all for joining me here tonight to get a little GCD on these matters. And let's see if I have any other things to go over here before we pop on over to Patreons. Oh yeah, we're also going to be, again, ongoing enterprises and evolutions of these things. We're often told, oh, well, the Process Church, that disbanded in 1974. And then again, we have folks directly connected, another protege of Boyd Rice, that Satanist Nazi fella, mentor to Tracy Twyman, et al., Trent Reznor, Marilyn Manson, the industrial rock movement, the movement that uses the smiley face symbol as a chaos symbol. And Trent Reznor, who does his first album in the Tate Polanski Death House, Murder House on Cielo Drive, where he depicts I would argue, a smiley face killer victim. Crime is being depicted in the music video Broken, which was him and Genesis P-Orch's pal Christofferson from Throbbing Gristle. Again, these are the guys that invented industrial rock. Throbbing Gristle, Boyd Rice and his non. We see that with Reznor and his NIN, where he stole the NON from Rice there. And if you folks are joining us here tonight for the first time and don't know that Nazi Satanist Boyd Rice, who seems to be the mentor to everybody, let me introduce you.
And racial purity.
This has historically been a sacred day. A day of purification. A day of hell and fury. We mourn not its victims. We honor its victors. In closing, I would remind those here that murder is the predator's prerogative, and there is no birth without blood.
Holy smokes. Well, we see these ongoing processing activities. So when they're doing the Process Church album there on Skinny Puppy, we hear from the bassist in an interview tonight how he's the go-between from the old process to the new process, how these chapters never closed. Their own words, folks, not mine. Let me just bring up a quick clip of that here.
Tell us some about your own involvement with the Process Church. Like what got you interested in the process?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I mean, the reason that Lucian and I became friends, which predates TST by 15 years, I guess.
Okay.
Was due to the process. So that's a long story as well. So I moved to California in 1992 when, I believe it was 92, when Skinny Puppy got signed to American Recordings. And we all moved into a house on Zuma Beach in California that the record label had Rick Rubin, actually, from Def Jam, and who started American, rented this house for us. It's a famous old house. He actually lives in it now. And, bands like The Band and Jimi Hendrix and all these people recorded there. It had this really long musical lineage. And at the time, that was, we're talking predating the web at that point, the visual web, the first web browser that was released.
So we're talking some old school stuff there when he connects back to the process when Genesis P-Orch, Boyd Rice, Rick Rubin, and gang are all hanging out. They're having a good time. These matters do persist.
So the Process Church is at kind of this weird intersection of all of these interesting issues for the Satanic Temple, because it has to do with witch hunts, which of course the Satanic Temple is very interested in, kind of moral panics and witch hunts and the Satanic Panic. TST of course has a whole campaign called Gray Faction. People can listen to my interview with the leaders of Gray Faction, with the director of Gray Faction, if you're interested in that. But it also has to do with kind of original, Lucian Greaves, in his conversation with you, Lucian Greaves, for people who don't know, is the founder of TST. He talked about how the Process Church was very influential in his and Malcolm Jerry's conception of TST.
Yes.
So we'll be unpacking more of those tonight here, folks, on the interwebs. We've seen Lucian. He's the Process Church Tattoo, process.org website, head of the Satanic Temple, Baphomet statue, where he says that the theology behind the statue is the reconciliation of opposites, the Process Church theology. We see that's the basis of their organization by their own words, folks, not mine. we see them admit in that same interview, the process never ended. In fact, they're the modern day go-betweens, the Satanic Temple. Again, their words, not mine, folks. So we'll look at more of those details here tonight, but it is these matters that persist and evolve, and we do see that. And again, Dr. Inferno will be coming here to discuss some of those Zoomer millennial aspects of how these things are being perpetrated and recruited through online forums in the interwebs. So on that note, folks of the interwebs, if you got any more questions or concerns, please send me an email, write me on Twix or Instagram. Find the links in the show notes. Also find a link for the Patreons over there. Come on down, join us for the remainder of the conversation, and we will. On that note, thank you all again for joining me here tonight, and Patreon folks, see you on the other side here in a few minutes, and catch you next time.
Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Out in the holler where the secrets creep, garbage can dudes digging mighty deep. Secret societies, shadows in the pines. Operation GCD of American rebels design. Double J searching deep in his brain hole, past layers of melted hops and bone resin. From cults to cover-ups, we're talking about all of that. So watch your sixth friend in the truth we trust. The world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Join us on the journey and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us to get a little GCD. Any world's a puzzle, brunch rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo coats haunt the moon's pale beam. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Hell, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Out in the holler where the secrets creep, garbage can dudes digging mighty deep. Secret societies, shadows in the pines. Operation GCD of American rebels design. Double J searching deep in his brain hole, past layers of melted hops and bone resin. From cults to cover-ups, we're talking about all of that. So watch your sixth friend in the truth we trust. The world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Join us on the journey and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us to get a little GCD. Hey, world's a puzzle, brunch rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo coats haunt the moon's pale beam. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Hell, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze.
Boom!